Americans for Safe Access is celebrating our 23rd anniversary. For over 2 decades, we've brought medical cannabis stakeholders together to meet the immediate needs of patients while addressing knowledge, policy, and regulatory gaps, clearing the way for a national medical cannabis framework that serves all patients. What you may not know is that ASA has been women-led ever since I founded the organization in 2002. So for our 23rd anniversary, I've created this series where I've interviewed women who have taught me everything I know about medical cannabis. My goal is to share the inspiration that these women have brought to my life with new and seasoned advocates alike. I'm honored to present the women who crush, the women who get shit done. I cannot wait for y'all to meet Ms. Jodeci Gonzalez. She is who you hope is part of the cannabis businesses. She's a fierce patient advocate, and she's just a lovely person who has taken what she's learned about medical cannabis and turns around and educates everyone around her. So I'm so excited for you all to experience her joy and her dedication. All right, hello. Thank you so much.
Buzz.
Yay. So you got to start by telling me about the buzz.
Oh, the buzz. Really the intention is to pollinate positivity and break down barriers and social anxiety. I'm a medical patient, and when I started using cannabis as medicine, I got a lot of negative feedback from the public saying, "Whoa, you look high." And I became really defensive. So to be offensive or offensive, right, and not take things so personally, I just said, you know what? Buzz. And so people really caught on to that. It helped me navigate conversations easier with more authenticity and fluidity. And it stuck with my whole mission to create sticky sweet remedies to empower minds across the nation.
I love that. I love that. I'm so glad I asked about the background. I had no idea. Because yeah, all of your posts, there's a little buzz in there, so I really love that. Well, you know what, I'm so excited that you have some time to join me on this fun little project, and I'm excited for more people to meet you and learn more about what you're doing. So you already said you're a medical cannabis patient, but what got you into this space?
Thank you so much for having me. I'll start off with that. It's truly an honor, and it's fun to connect with like-minded women in the industry and elevate each other. And really, what brought me to this space is I was on my own wellness journey and had left a tough position in human resources, helping nurses navigate their career. And just through my own personal journey, my father had passed away due to an opioid overdose, which really drove me to finding holistic medicine. And in that, I drove all the way from Indiana to Las Vegas, and there was a sign that said dispensary, cannabis dispensary. And I went into the dispensary and found out they were not selling weed. They were selling a whole medical experience for an individual. I mean, there was so much science behind every bud that I had seen on the shelves. It was pretty. There was opportunities for me to learn more about who I was as an individual, and that caught me hook, line, and sinker. And immediately I started and immersed myself into the cannabis industry. I became a budtender and started learning more about the plant and how it worked with our endocannabinoid system, bringing this balance to our bodies, and that we were similar to the plant. And it wasn't something that I should have been afraid of in the past, like sneaking around under the bleachers with my friends in high school smoking a joint. It was something that was really changing lives. And as I learned more about the different products on the shelves, it really amplified my mission to create my own product line, as well as advocate for others who really wanted to have a wellness routine rooted in its natural form. So that's really what drove me into this space, and I can't see myself anywhere else.
I love that. That's such a beautiful journey. And I think, again, what is so remarkable to me about people in this space is that they have their personal experience that changes their life. And then they don't keep it to themselves, right? They like actually plug in and start educating and helping others find that same relief on the journey. And I love what you said about, the sort of wellness brought you to learn about the plant, which actually taught you more about yourself. And I think
Yeah.
that is it's so true that so many people, I think before, for whatever reason, they hear the endocannabinoid system, maybe they're looking for some reason to convince their wife that it's okay that they're using cannabis, like whatever brings them there, right? To
Mhm.
understand that all of a sudden they're like, wait, I have inside my body. Oh, I have this system. Oh, it regulates it. And so, I really am hoping, like Michelle Sexton, who's one of the women that I interviewed this week, she's a naturopath. And a mentor of mine, and she always said that she thought cannabis was going to be the gateway to other herbal medicines. And I
Oh, I
think
love
a perfect
that.
example, right, of like how that happens.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love the reframing on that. And it's definitely how it happened. I was taking, you know, different pills prescribed from my physician, and it was because of cannabis and really different tinctures or trying out different products that helped me manage my pain and overall stabilize my mood. But it did also introduce me into the aspects of just different plant medicines and why it's so healthy to drink more teas in your day, or growing agriculture. It's so important, and really letting thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine being thy food. So I've been able to change my diet. I have a different outlook of what works best for my body. And I'm so much more in tune with my body than I was about a decade ago before I entered the space.
Right. No, yeah, it's so amazing. And the quote that you were just saying, this is actually from Hippocrates, which is I always find so interesting that in Western medicine, doctors take the Hippocratic oath, but they didn't read anything else about the guy, right? They didn't, the sort of, back to basics that food is medicine, medicine is food, and that the fact that that is left out of Western medicine, is crazy. But as I've worked on various projects, like to introduce the endocannabinoid system into pre-med, education and introduce that language into like biology, other places, what I also found interesting is that physicians aren't required to take nutrition courses,
Mm,
right?
I had
Like,
no idea.
yeah, so it's not a requirement for pre-med, right? And so that's one of the reasons it's hard to find a place to educate doctors about the endocannabinoid system because, and I mean, I don't even understand that. Like, how do you prescribe drugs that metabolize in the body and not not know what else is happening in those organs? But
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, I think that can really change the narrative of what we're experiencing right now in the cannabis industry is having continuing, learning credits or education for these physicians to know one about nutrition and two, even about the cannabis plant. As we're looking at seeing more people wanting to access cannabis as a medical form, I think it is so important for education, education, and education to be shared amongst medical professionals, bud tenders, cultivars, the whole front line and the whole line of pharmacists. I think that can really help change the narrative, but we all know it comes back down to the big 280E piece.
yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting around the way that people approach education, almost everyone I know in the cannabis space, and literally almost every person I've interviewed for this has started off by saying either like I never thought I would work in cannabis, or some version of, I was a dare kid, like I grew up thinking
Mhm.
cannabis was bad. And so if we all like, there's not very many common experiences we have in the United States, right? This is really like the age of the individual. We don't even drink coffee the same. We don't even watch, TV at the same time, right? Like everybody's having their own experience, except for the war on drugs, right? Everybody has been
Right.
told in their life that cannabis is bad. So as we learn in ourselves and learn that something, a different narrative, the true history of cannabis, that it's not just about the war on drugs, but also the history of botanical medicines in this country,
Mm.
history of drug development and scientific discovery, that once we're enlightened, then instead of having empathy for those around us who are not, right, we're like, oh, they're stupid. They don't know anything about cannabis. It's like, I'm pretty sure if I talked to you like 2 years ago, right, you were going to sound like
Yeah.
them. So I love that you add that educational component and all the work that you do.
Well, it's really important, one, just to break down the stigmas. And another reason is I have a Ayurvedic background. So right now I'm studying to become an Ayurvedic practitioner or consultant. And soon I'll be a Vaidya. So in that, we're learning how it's not these holistic forms of medicine or healthcare and wellness. It's not to totally eliminate what doctors are doing. It's a complementary service or addition to their, and it goes back to one of your points earlier about nutrition. Everything stems from the gut. 70% of illnesses come from our gut. And if we just took better care of our lifestyle, work life balance, putting ourselves first, being that enlightened individual, then we can perform better and work better with each other on the education piece versus it being a riot.
Yeah, no, yeah, I was thinking about doing a an educational campaign for cannabis consumers of like, want to save money on cannabis, exercise.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Like you're actually are like want to save money on cannabis, eat a vegetable.
Right. I have this blog and it's called The Three W's to Winning in Weight Loss: Walking, Weed, and Water. I
Love it.
lost 100 pounds twice by incorporating cannabis into my daily regimen.
Uh-huh.
And it was a self-study, but as I got into the Las Vegas market, I really, and learning about the endocannabinoid system and working alongside physicians who had the knowledge on the endocannabinoid system and the cannabis plant, I really learned how it was helping my metabolism as well as enhancing my mood. So I was becoming more active and more aware of my lifestyle choices. So walking is the number one free form of exercise. Like if we
Yeah.
just took 20 minutes in the morning to walk as soon as the sun is coming up, we're getting the most antioxidants, the best antioxidants from the sun without damaging our skin. And it really sets the tone for our day. So I know some people like to wake and bake, and it's because it's part of their ritual, their morning routine. And I think if more people understood that lifestyle routine and how to maintain it instead of having these negative stigmas, it could really help this enlightenment and education piece and bring everything full circle.
No, I love that. And I think also, I find that within the cannabis space, there isn't a lot of support for when cannabis isn't helping. Right. And I think that it's really hard and really damaging, right? Because there are lots of ways that you can have cannabis in your life and it's not a good thing, right? Like,
Right.
and I think it also helps sort of play into, um, you know, the addiction industrial complex, right? Coming up with solutions because we're not offering people solutions, right? So
Right.
if people are like, I'm having this horrible feeling, I must have cannabis use disorder, right? And to put myself into treatment. And so, yeah, I think that learning that balance and trying to get stigma away from like internal stigma, like this isn't working for me. Is it okay to say it without people, calling you a narc or something, right?
Right. Oh, I love that you shed light on that because sometimes I get a little afraid to speak up. I do have a chronic illness and it's CPTSD, which is a complex PTSD. So it's just been PTSD that's been introduced over a long, extended period of time. And there are some strains that I just can't partake in, or I am a big component on taking tolerance breaks. So right now, especially being in a state that doesn't offer flower, it's been a lot easier for me to, not feel like cannabis has become my crutch because in the beginning I was just using it, not to take away from anybody that is doing that, but I wasn't really always using it for pain management. It was just because maybe I was born bored because I was alone, right? And so knowing the intention behind why you're using it is something that I've become a big advocate for. And it's also something to say about how medical patients are being dosed from a policy level or looking at being dosed, because what works for me may not work for the next person. We're all different and individual. So some, 20 milligram gummy might work for me, but it's not okay for somebody else. So starting them out on the lowest dose possible and just explaining to them, like, how about you try incorporating this slowly into your life, and you can stop whenever you want to stop. I think that can help the argument as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're sharing how this is working for us as individuals is it's really the future of this type of medicine, right? I think what we're seeing in society is that, Western medicine, I call it crisis medicine, right? I am not going to go, take a tincture if my leg is broken, right?
Right.
I'm excited that there's someone there that can fix that, right? But it's not all, it's not the whole approach to health and to life, and that the fact that we separate those out has really, I mean, we can see that in the chronic diseases that we have now, right? That a lot of them come back to actually endocannabinoid health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and if you look at all of the people, who are maybe introduced to cannabis through an adult use market, maybe they're hanging out with some people at a concert, right? And they realize the next morning that all of a sudden their like shoulders went down and they can move, right? That, they don't necessarily know how to use it. And I think that's why it's so important to have a space for medical, that, medical cannabis isn't the same as adult use. It might be the same plant,
Mm-hmm.
but the information we need and how to use it is very different. And so I really appreciate the education that you bring to people, about the medical use.
I think that is so important. Although I'm in a state where we do have a medical program, and I'm in Georgia. So we right now have the low THC oil program. So it allows us to obtain 5% of a THC product, right now they have some topicals and tinctures, a couple other products, and we're working on legislation now to diversify that.
Yeah.
However, I went through the medical program specifically and intentionally just to see what medical patients are experiencing. And although I had used cannabis in the past, I do fear for medical patients not being able to have enough educational access when they're inside of the interview. My appointment with my physician lasted under 3 minutes, and we did not talk about the cannabis plant at all. He asked me, when were you diagnosed? And I hope you have a good day. I'll send your recommendation off. No follow up. When I received my card, there were no pamphlets in there. Luckily, I knew of the advocacy groups out here in Georgia, and I had used the plant before, but it is something that I think we really need to take seriously when we're looking at getting new patients onboarded into these medical programs. It's not fair that they don't have access to it, and then in the back we can criminalize them for you maybe using too much and then driving and something bad happened, God forbid.
Absolutely right. And I think, I'm actually most worried about patients who have a bad experience the first time, right? Because I know that, cannabis is a superior anti-inflammatory, especially for chronic diseases, right? Like the pharmaceutical solutions aren't meant to be taken for several days. I mean, look at Advil.
Right.
Look at the back of it. It says don't take this for 3 days, right? So
Yeah.
a chronic condition for the rest of your life. And so if somebody, has, a product that has a residual solvent in it, like these are scary experiences, right? They're never coming back. And that means that cannabis is just shut off in their mind. And so you're so right.
Mhm.
Education has to go along, the entire pathway. Well, I could talk to you forever. It's been so amazing. And I'm having so much fun doing this series. I might figure out a way to keep it going.
Yes.
I would love to have you come on to a lunch and learn and talk to us a little bit more about your journey and integration of cannabis.
Oh, I would love that. Anything for, the Americans for Safe Access, Women Who Crush, and just to continue inspiring others to tell their story. That's huge. And if we share our testimonies in a solution-based positive light, even though we've gone through some, maybe not so upbeat experiences, it can help us really overcome.
I love that. Well, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Steph. This has been a pleasure. Mwah.